Hard to believe it's week number 4 of Battle Plans, but it is week number 4 of Battle Plans. In this day that we live in, these struggles, boy, suffering is a topic that's, I think, at the forefront. And a little less than 2 years ago, Bobby Schuller spoke at our first Kingdom Men's Gathering on this very topic and ways that we can find God's strength in the middle of very dark times. So I cannot think of a better battle plan for this week than the powerful words from Pastor Bobby Schuller. We'll see you on the other side. Men, thank you for joining us for Battle Plans.
So today, I want to talk about this idea of sacrifice, the importance of suffering, the dangers of mediocrity, and the value of being willing to do what just feels absolutely horrible to do for the sake of your faith and for your family.
Come on, Bobby.
So, I'm a Schuller, right? So I have to tell you something. Anything's possible in your life. And that's true. We're going to talk about that the best is yet to come in your life if you're doing life with Jesus. And as Americans, we understand the value of the imagination, the value of believing anything is possible, the value of our dreams. But we've also created today a culture that rewards mediocrity. And you can't have both those things. You can't have your dreams and your possibilities and while at the same time have a life of mediocrity. You have to go all out for those things and being willing to go through the suffering. So the two things I want to get across to you today, to be that kind of warrior that Frank is talking about, one, you have to actually change your mindset that you really can do anything if you're a disciple of Jesus Christ. That literally, when he said that anything is possible for those who believe, it's true. And you need to change that mindset if you're not there. You need to stop comparing yourself to your dad or to your brother or to some of your friends. And especially the ones that didn't do well, the ones that messed up. You can't compare yourself to them and say, oh, I'm just like them. You have to believe that no matter how old you are, how sick you are, if you're overweight, if you're too young, or for whatever, that really anything is possible in your life. And that's the first change. But the second change you have to realize is that also, when you believe that, you have to be willing to pay the price to get the thing that you want to get. Jesus said everything is possible, but he also said, take up your cross and follow me. This is a principle for life, that yes, we must believe that anything is possible, that God will call us to do impossible things. But we also have to remember that there is a big price to pay. And it's actually in the paying of the price, in the suffering, in the difficulty, and in the training that we become the kinds of men that can do the things God has called us to do. At the fulfilling of one calling and the suffering that leads to that calling will then prepare us for the next calling. So that's again why Jesus does say anything's possible for you, but he also says, take up your cross and follow me. Jesus wasn't afraid of pain. Jesus wasn't afraid of suffering. And neither have been the greatest Christian leaders in history. Actually, you want to hear a great story. In Europe in the 7th century, most of Europe had become Christian, except for most of Germany. These large pockets of what's now Germany that were filled with Druid warriors. And nobody could seem to break through and bring the gospel to Germany until there was this English priest and monk who was invited to visit the Pope in Italy and thought he was going to stay there and be a professor and eat pasta and enjoy the good weather in Rome. And the Pope, and some people speculate that the Pope didn't like this guy very much, so he told him to do this. He told Boniface, go into the heart of Germany and preach the gospel to the Druid warriors. He was so upset about that because he thought he was going to eat pasta and teach, and now he has to go to cold Germany and is probably going to die. And so he just decides on his journey to Germany that he's just going to die a martyr. He's like, I'm just going to friggin' die. And I don't even care. And he was angry at the Pope. And he walks into the center of the country, where there is this huge ancient world tree called the Tree of Thor. And he walks in unannounced with an axe on his shoulder, says nothing, and chops down the Tree of Thor and begins to preach from it. That's a warrior, Frank. That's a man. And little did he know, that in the Druid culture, the greatest virtue was courage. And the only missionaries that had been sent there before were a bunch of wieners. And so they had... And so when he just like, I'm just going to go and die. I'm over this. I'm not going to live in Germany. He cuts down the Tree of Thor, which also sounds awesome. Actually, in the story, part of the miracle was that as he began chopping, it's a giant tree. I don't know if you ever chopped a tree down, but it takes a long time. So he's chopping down this giant tree, and the wind starts blowing. And Thor, of course, if you watch Marvel movies, you'll know, is the god of thunder and storms. And a wind starts to go, and so they think, oh yeah, here it comes. Thor's going to kill this guy. And the wind comes and finishes the job, like blows the tree over, and it just goes, go, 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 go. And he just like stands up and he's like, you are all in sin and need to repent. Anyway. So bringing the gospel to Germany sounded impossible to a lot of people. 700 years of faith in Europe, and it still hadn't made it to Germany. It took somebody who was willing to die, and in his case even wanted to die, to break through. And this is the narrow road. What do you think it felt like for that guy to stand up there, by the way, and preach? 100% guarantee it felt great. It felt great. There's a great podcast. Now, this is not a Christian podcast. When you listen to it, there's a lot of sailor talk. But I think you'll be okay. You'll live. And it's with a guy named David Goggins. He's not a Christian. And he's being interviewed by Joe Rogan. And I love this guy's story. He started out at this home in a black community and was very poor, and his dad was super abusive, and he recalls a story one time when his dad beat up his mom and then drug her down the stairs by her hair, and then he went to fight his dad, and his dad beat him up. And then she finally leaves him, and he and his mom moved to this little town in Indiana. This is not that long ago, in the 90s. And it's an all-white, very small town of about 10,000 people. And like the first week he's there, there's like a town parade, and the Ku Klux Klan is in the parade. And so he spends much of junior high and high school. He's the only black kid in the whole town. And he's being called the N-word every day. And he's an outcast and doesn't have any friends. Develops a stutter. Starts getting fat. And by the time he's 24, he's impoverished. He's living in a one-bedroom apartment in the worst part of town. He can barely afford the rent. He weighs 300 pounds. He is an exterminator, and he's just depressed. And one day, this guy sees on the Discovery Channel a story about the Navy SEALs, and he gets this question in his head: what if? What if a fat, this is his words, not mine. What if a fat loser like me could become a bad eight? I kind of want to say it, but I can't because I'm in church. What if, became the baddest mother-loving son of a gun? And so, he decides, what if? It's possibility thinking, guys. What if that could happen to me? So he goes down to the recruiter center, and the recruiter says, you're out of shape. There's no way we can even take you into anything. And he goes to recruiter, and finally one guy says, maybe the reserves will take you. So he goes to the reserves, and they say, look, you can be in the reserves. There's a qualification in 3 months, but you have to be 190 pounds at your height, and you weigh 300 pounds. And so he said, I'll forget that. I can't do that. I can't lose 100 pounds in 3 months. And went back to, he said, drinking chocolate milkshakes. One day, because he was an exterminator, he was at a Red Lobster. And he said he hit the mother load of cockroaches. And he's like, I don't like cockroaches much. And he's just like hit the mother load. And he was like, this is my life. This is my life. And this is the result of the decisions I've made. This is my life. And he decided, he left that spray bucket there, left the van, and just walked away. And decided he was going to do whatever it took to lose that weight. He lost 100 pounds in 3 months. And he said he just went crazy. And he was afraid of water too, which makes it even great. You know, he had this horrible fear of water. He couldn't swim. So he would like get in the pool and just like freak out. Because if you want to be a Navy SEAL, you got to be able to swim, you know what I'm saying? Swim like a SEAL. So he's just like, he's like working out, and when he's not working out, he's like training his mind by just being in a pool, which is like, has his brain going, and he just decides that I'm going to do this, and he ultimately becomes, he has to go through 3 hell weeks. So if you know anything about hell week, it's like one of the most horrible things. People die all the time. He goes through 3 hell weeks and becomes a Navy SEAL. So this guy what he says is he just decided that he needed to suffer. He was like, if I ever saw something that I was like, would be so absolutely horrible and I wouldn't want to do it, I'd be like, I have to do that. So if it's 3 a.m. and it's raining outside and he's like, man, the worst thing ever would be to go out there and run. He's like, gets out of bed and just goes and runs in the rain. And this has been the guy's mindset. He's become an ultra marathon runner since being a Navy SEAL. The first time he ran, he'd never run a marathon, and then he decided he wanted to raise money for a bunch of his friends who died in a helicopter fight in Iraq. He goes out to this run, and he does 70 miles and is completely done, falls into this lawn chair that he starts peeing blood, craps up his back, and almost starts going into shock. And then his wife was like, you need to go to a hospital. But then he's like, no, I have to do this because the suffering is good for me. I'm not recommending this, by the way. It's very dangerous. But he gets out of his chair, and he just begins to like hobble around the circle. And then he said something happened around mile 81. 81. He'd never run a marathon. And he just went into this full-on run and finished and qualified. He now has set the world record for most pull-ups. He did 4,030 pull-ups, which I think is pretty impressive. But the main thing I thought of when I heard this interview was, man, if we as believers, if this guy could become, actually I prayed for him, if this man could know Jesus and apply that same understanding that suffering can bring the best out of us, that choosing to be what's horrible is the thing that makes you the warrior. It's the thing that makes you the 1 out of 99. It's the suffering that makes you a great husband, makes you a great dad, makes you a great employee, makes you a man of God. It's getting up in the morning and praying. It's putting the Lord first in everything you do in your life and just deciding, I'm not going to be like everybody else. That is what makes us. And the danger is there's all of these things that want to draw us away from our calling. Thomas Aquinas once was with the Pope, and the Pope takes him, this is in the medieval age, the church is very wealthy, and the Pope says, look, Thomas, and he shows him a treasure room. No longer can we say silver and gold have I not. And Thomas grabs him by the arm and says, neither can we say rise up and walk. You see that exchange? That's the exchange. Look, it's okay and even good to succeed, to have money, to do well in life, but never, ever, ever let it deter you from understanding the value of suffering and the value of sacrifice and the value of choosing to walk the narrow road for your faith and not depending on food or on wealth or on any of those things, but depending on the Lord. And watch. If you're willing to suffer, if you're willing to let go of your ego and you're willing to do what's difficult, God can do anything in your life, anything. And we believe that. Amen. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Frank. Thanks, Frank. Appreciate
Thank you. Bobby Schuller, come on, give it up. Wow.
My thanks go out to Bobby Schuller for sharing that powerful message on suffering. And I don't know about you, but I needed to hear that now more than ever during all of this, all of these times of unsuredness and just darkness. Men, we're here for you. That's why we're putting these videos up every week at kmgministries.com. If we can help you, serve you, bless you, pray for you in any way, reach out to us, please, at kmgministries.com or just franksontag.com, and we will respond accordingly. Next week, probably the biggest challenge that we face in this short life we live. But for now, men, God bless you. Stay strong in the Lord. Let us know how we can serve you. We're here for you. God bless you.